today we are looking at another theory video. So I haven't done one of these in a while, but I love theory, love it so much, and I know that we are entering a season for the UNISA theory exams coming up soon. We're halfway through the year, so they do have one exam session now. There is another one at the end of the year, and usually in any given year we have 3 sessions. So February session, May, June session, and then the October session. So today we are deep diving into grade 5 territory, one of my favorite grades, and it gets a little bit steep at this point because up until grade 4 I do think that there is a huge possibility that you can get 100%. If you watched any of my previous videos, I did sneak a little hinty hint in there that when I did grade 4 theory back when I was in grade 11 at school, I got 99% fun, and I definitely know that I lost out that mark at melody writing. But anyway, at grade 5 level it becomes a little bit more hard to get 100%. We do have 4-part harmony and we do have some interesting melody writing requirements. So if you have not yet watched the melody writing video on 4-bar melody writing as well as 8-bar melody writing for grade 3 and 4 respectively, please go ahead and watch that, because this video takes those foundations. We're gonna build on it from here, and today we are looking at grade 5 melody writing. So still 8-bar melody writing, but we have some more requirements. So in the past few past papers, this has been question 7, and the question reads as follows: complete the following melody for an instrument of your choice. Add meaningful articulation and dynamic indications. So we will be getting either something in the bass clef, hello, or the treble clef, hello. And you need to choose an instrument. Now, there are many string instruments that can play in both of these clefs. There are woodwind instruments, blah, blah, blah. I would ask you maybe not to choose a string instrument, because if you're going to have to add meaningful articulation and whatnot, you would have to add bow markings. And if you're not a string player, then I would say rather don't do that. Something applicable to always write for the bass clef. Go in your exam knowing this already. Write for bassoon. For treble clef, write for the flute. This just means that if you're writing for the flute, please do not go below middle C in the treble clef, because flutes can't do those things. So go ahead knowing what you're going to write for already. Choose a bass clef option, choose a treble clef option instrument. Okay, so we don't go in blindly. Secondly, we now have to add in meaningful articulation. They will give us some slurs, maybe some staccatos, maybe whatever, and we can sort of copy from them. Now, in grade 4, which was the level before grade 5, we were given a full 4-bar melody to which we had to add another 4-bar phrase. So we had to complete this melody. So what we did was we had a plan of action, and of course, there are many different ways of doing melody writing correctly. So I just shared one way that we can look at it and make sure that we do really well in it. So this video also, I'm going to share one way in which you can look at it. Don't take it as the be all and end all. There are many different other ways to do it right. Of course, there are ways to do it wrong. So don't go be doing the wrong ways. But of course, if your teacher has shown you something and it really does work, do that, you know. If you're looking for something different to do, you can do this. But I mean, there are other options. So the difference between grade 4 and grade 5 is that in grade 5 now, while we are still working with an 8-bar melody, we are no longer given 4 full bars. They're just going to give us 2 bars, and then we have to fill in 6 bars. So those last few bars, the last 4 bars, we're really going to copy what we know already from grade 4 level. So yes, we want to copy paste our bar 1 into bar 5. We want to have a sequence of bar 5 in bar 6. We want to have the dominant chord, but now also spicy. We want to have the dominant 7th chord in bar 7, and then we do want to end with a long tonic in bar 8. So that's coming from what we know from grade 4 level. So that's why I say watch that video and be comfortable with that before coming here. Okay, because we're not going to go over that too much. I expect that you already know what I'm talking about from there to here. One thing that is going to be different now, we have to add bars 3 and 4. Okay, we're going to have to start thinking about harmonic progressions. So harmonic progressions, interesting. We do have a theory in music theory of how Western harmony should move, which chords can follow which chords make good patterns, what makes sense, all of that. But we're going to keep it nice and gentle, I would say. So what UNISA is most likely going to do is they're going to throw something at you in a minor key, because hey, they were quite nice before and they really threw you a lot of major keys in the previous grades. So now I'm betting you that they're going to give you a minor key. But be comfortable in both major and minor keys here. But the thing about the minor key is that you will get your leading note and you most likely will start on an upbeat now, which is great. So right at the end of your melody, you're going to have to minus your upbeat bar and end with the longest tonic that you can have in your time signature. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at today. Some interesting examples, and then hopefully with working through these, you'll be able to work through easy examples on your own. So the harmonic progression is most likely going to go tonic to supertonic or tonic to subdominant for the first 2 bars. And then, of course, we would like to complete that progression by probably going dominant tonic. Okay, and then we're going to have our copy paste of bar 1 to bar 5, we're going to have our sequence, and then we're going to have our dominant 7, and then we're going to have our tonic. So that's great. So we basically will have a nice progression like that. A lot of the times I see upbeats and they include the leading note, which means your upbeat is basically going to be based on the dominant chord. That's great. Now we're going to take a look at our first example. Now let's look at something in the bass clef and a nice spicy time signature. Let's do 6/8. Okay, so what I also want to say is, even though we now know chord-tads and our dominant chord-tad, so our chords with a 7th, we're not going to exhaust it. Whenever we see a dominant, we're not just always going to make it a dominant 7th. Okay, we want to keep the spiciness for the very end so that we're not too predictable. So there is going to be a part in your melody where I would say base this on your dominant chord. And then right at the end, just before you end off, base this on your dominant 7 so that it's evident that you are about to end. Because you don't want to end twice in your melody. This is a short and sweet melody, 8 bars. Not a lot, surprisingly. So you can't end and then end again. We're not writing an ending and then a little codetta plus a coda plus a something else. We don't want to end 5 times. We just want to end once. So we're going to keep it nice and simple. A lot of work goes into this, I must say, and it's only for 10 marks. So we have to think about, okay, harmony. We have to think about our melody. Then we have to add an appropriate tempo if it's not there already. We have to add appropriate dynamics if it's not there already. And also, even if they do give a dynamic indication, we sort of have to add on top of that. And then also we need to add in our meaningful articulations, and we have to choose a correct instrument to write for. So that's crazy. It's a lot of things, definitely way more worth than 10 marks in my opinion, but there's a lot of other stuff that need to be tested at grade 5 level, and we can't have this paper count out of 200. It only counts out of 100, so 10 marks, I guess is appropriate, but still it's a lot of work that's about to go into it just for 10 marks, but it's really good for you to be able to practice these things. So let's look at our example 1. Okay, so here I have an example up on the board. You'll see we have a little upbeat bar. We have bar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we will have blank staves in which to fill in our answer. So it would be lovely if we could just outline our bar numbers. Here we are. So right at the beginning we see a G sharp going to A, blah blah blah. We see 0 sharps or flats in the key signature. Okay, so we can already know that this is A minor. Now, in order for us to sort of analyze what's going on here, we need to know our chords in A minor. So we really do need to outline everything. So if I am in A minor, of course my tonic is A, and I'm going to write down the numbers 1 to 7 for tonic through to leading note, and then I'm going to write down my chord notes. So as you may know from watching my previous videos, when it's a major key, I like to outline all the chords capital letters, and if it's a minor key, I like to do it in baby lowercase letters, but that's just a habit for me. Just make sure you are outlining the note names correctly. So don't say I am going to write a G. Remember, A minor has a G sharp. So when you are writing down your note names already, write it down correctly. Spelling is important, not only in language but in music. So I'm going to write down very loosely, and it doesn't really matter how rough your rough draft of this looks because no one's going to see it. Please erase it or do it on rough paper. But I have A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, and then I can outline the chords. Okay, there we have it. And so you'll see I also just outlined my dominant 7th. Of course, there's now a 7th above the E. Okay, so even though this is a major chord, I've outlined the note names in lowercase, but okay, that's just a habit of mine. So we can already just see, okay, we're in A minor, A dotty dotty. This would definitely be based on the dominant chord. Over here, I'm seeing A, C, E, A, C. There's like a little passing note. That's great. We will also need to be using non-chord tones or passing notes, because if you want to maximize our marks, that's what we're going to have to do at this level. Okay, so this whole bar is based on the tonic. Each bar should be based loosely on just one chord for now. We're not going to be too fancy, okay? So over here, what are we having? I'm going to guess that we're either going to have the supertonic or the subdominant over here, okay? We can have a few chords that can lead us to get to a dominant or tonic if we really know our harmonic progression well. But I mean, let's just go with the basics of basics and let's test out our theory. We have a B, we have D, C seems to be a passing note here. So if we have a B and a D, we definitely are either on the supertonic or another B and D, we have the leading note. Okay, we could be dominant seventh, but are we going to have a dominant seventh in the second bar of a short melody? No! Okay, we keep the spiciness for the end. So we only have two options. It could be the supertonic or the leading note. And yeah, leading note can literally only want to act as a dominant or be a leading note in its own right, but then it's going to have to go to the tonic. And if it doesn't go to the tonic, it's going to have to revert somewhere else. It does get complicated. We don't really have to know this at this level, but if we were going to be on the leading note, we would have to go back sort of in retrograde fashion to the submediant, and then the submediant would have to go to a subdominant function, which could either be the subdominant or it could be the supertonic, and then that would have to go to dominant function, and that would go to the tonic. So we're not going to do that. We just, okay? So it's either, for lack of big words now, we're either going to go to 2 or to 4 before we get to 5. So in a minor key, I outlined the supertonic as diminished, and we actually have it in its first inversion form here because, hey, D is that middle note of the chord, and this is actually what we expect in a minor key. We do expect the special chord, so the diminished and the augmented, to be in first inversion. So that's great. All of this confirms that this should be supertonic. Okay, great. Then I would really like to have a dominant over here. I would like to go to tonic there. Then I'm going to copy paste bar 1 into bar 5. I'm going to have a sequence of bar 5 and bar 6. I'm going to have dominant 7th over here, and I'm going to want to end on my tonic. Now already I know that my tonic is not going to be the fullest tonic that it can be, as in a dotted minim in 6/8 time, because we have an upbeat bar. So right at the end, and I can choose which A I want to use, the low A or the high A. I would like to climax to the high A over here, because already we do start going G sharp A in the higher register. So I would like to do that. So I want to end my piece on a A. Remember, we're on the bass clef, and remember where the A goes. So my longest possible note value now is a dotted crotchet tied to a crotchet. So that's my last bar. So I can already compose my last bar. Yay. I can also already copy paste bar 1 into bar 5 with the correct articulation. Okay. So because they are slurring over here, I'm going to slur as well. I'm going to copy everything the same, and I'm going to group correctly. Okay? There we go. We can have a sequence of bar 5 and bar 6. So 1 up. So I started on an A there. I'm going to go to a B here. I'm going to copy the exact articulation. There we go. Bar 7 is going to be dominant 7th. Okay, bar 3 is going to be normal dominant. But I haven't finished doing something over here. Okay, so bar 2 is incomplete because we are missing a quaver. So if an upbeat starts off a melody, we're going to have that idea of an upbeat throughout, at least in our phrases. And I'll show you how we phrase here. Usually at grade 4 level, we would have phrased the first 4 bars and then the next 4 bars. But over here, I would do a phrase, another phrase, and then we will have a third and final phrase, which is the longest phrase. That'll just comprise of our second line, bars 5 to 8. But okay, if I want to continue now, I have to use my melodic material, my rhythmic material, and we have already outlined basic chords. So now I have to think, okay, This is now super tonic. Great. I can repeat a note that I've had in the supertonic chords. So I can have a D and an F as we already have in the chord, but we actually don't have the root of the chord. So I could write a B, but I don't have to. I can omit the root. That's also fine. But I'm sort of thinking more about, hey, what's happening with my dominant? And my dominant is E. I would like to start on either. I can start on any note of the dominant chord, but I would like to start on my root. And the closest then to the root of the dominant would be either a D here or an F. And I already have a D here, so I'm just going to outline an F quaver, just because, I mean, I could do something else, but I want to do that there. Then I just want to outline my chord for the dominant in bar 3. I don't want to be too fancy. Yes, I can have passing notes, I can do whatever, but I mean, that can also come later. If you want to add passing notes here, you can, but remember, you're not allowed to jump between non-chord tones. You can only jump between chord notes. So technically, I can just outline my dominant chord as an E, G sharp B, E, G sharp B, if I wanted to. And I could do it very much in terms of grouping that I know in 6/8. So I can have E, G sharp B, E, G sharp B in terms of quavers, or I can go ahead and kind of copy the rhythm that they already gave us, you know. So that's quite nice, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do E, G sharp B, remember it's a G sharp, and I'm going to use the original rhythm that they've given me here, and then they do actually have another type of rhythm, and I'm going to use that. I'm just going to use the same notes. I don't have to outline a G sharp explicitly again, because that is a G sharp if it is in the same bar. Then I'm going to use their articulation. So they haven't given me any staccatos or anything, and then because of that, I'm not going to add in my own staccatos just because, okay? Then bar 4, we want to end on the tonic, but we can end on a long note. That's great, but I can also do something that they have done. Okay, so I'm thinking that this next phrase needs to start in an upbeat, definitely. And that's going to go all the way till the end. Sorry, that ugly phrasing. It will be written down better in pencil and paper. But yeah, what I have to add is only a dotted crotchet and a crotchet, because that upbeat is now taking over till the end of the piece. So what I can do is, I know that A is my tonic. I can do something on A, and I can either just have a dotted crotchet tied to a crotchet. That's great. I mean, simple, kind of like the end, but I said I don't want to end twice, so I want to do something spicy here, just a little bit extra. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this sort of pattern, okay? So I will just go B back to A, sort of like a auxiliary note, upper auxiliary note, and I'll just end on A. So nothing too crazy there. And how I will phrase this part is from this upbeat to over there, and then this upbeat to over there. The last phrase is from the end of the first line all the way to the end. Okay, so upbeat there all the way to the end. And now the only thing that I have to compose is this dominant 7th bar. Great. So what I can do is look at our dominant 7th note. Okay, great. I just haven't used the D in this case, okay, because that was just normal dominant. Now I can use a D. What can I do? Okay, so in our previous bar, which is our sequence bar, this is of course also based on a chord, but we don't have to actually have that figured out, because hey, we know that is tonic. That's just a sequence of tonic. It is a specific chord. Tell me in the comments which one it is. But we don't really have to show the examiner, oh, we know this. We don't have to. It's just a sequence. Cool. We're rather approaching this melodically than harmonically. But either or, it's great for you to know the chord. Tell me what it is. But over here, I want to go to the dominant 7th. Now, what is my closest note to the dominant 7th here? I have like 4 options of starting this bar. I can start in the E, the G sharp, the B, or the D. And for me, I'm just going to start in the E. It's also like very, very close to this D previous bar. So what I want to do is I'm going to start in the E, and I think I'm going to do something where I want to jump between chord notes, but chord notes only. So I'm going to do E. I want to move maybe to the B over there. And let's see what we can do creatively with this. Okay, so I'm going to separate my beats into rhythm over there. I'm going to really milk this type of rhythm that they've given us. So, that would be lovely. Okay. So I've jumped between the E and the B in our chord notes, and then I have made a little do-ti-do for the ending. So there we have it. Something sweet, something nice and simple, something that we can apply to every little snippet of a melody that they give us at grade 5 level. So not too crazy, but what you do need to know is they're only going to give you part 1 and 2. And then you might even have to upbeat to the next and upbeat to the next, especially if they give you an upbeat. If not, you don't have to upbeat stuff. Don't just add upbeats if they don't give you an upbeat. I mean, you could work around that creatively, but don't stress yourself. Only do upbeats if they give you an upbeat. So they give you a phrase which you have to then phrase. Phrase line. You have to put it in because they don't do it. So first phrase is what they give you. Second phrase, you're going to go from an upbeat to another equal length phrase of what they gave you. Then the last phrase is from an upbeat right to the end. Okay, and we're working on that we want to have a long tonic. At the end, we want to copy bar 1 into bar 5. We want to have a sequence of bar 5 in bar 6, dominant 7 in bar 7. Loosely, what we already know from grade 4. The only difference is this is a dominant 7th now, not just a dominant. And then also, what we know is that we're going to have to fill in bar 3 and 4. And 3 and 4 will then be based on dominant, normal dominant, to tonic. And I would just outline the dominant here. I wouldn't have any weird passing notes or stuff. For now, I'll show you how you can add it later on. But just do that. Then afterwards, this very example did not actually come with a tempo marking. So I would just say, let's make it moderato. And basically, if you just want to add in suitable dynamics, you can say, let me start this off quite loudly. You could go mezzo forte, and then maybe you want to do a little echo of that, because I mean, copy paste anyway. So you're going to say mezzo piano. Don't do too many crazy things. You can have crescendos or decrescendos, but make it sensible. For instance, right at the end, if your music is jumping up, you're not going to say, okay, I want to decrescendo to a pianissimo here, just for no reason. You would probably say, I'm going to crescendo up to a mezzo forte or a forte. But if we are not sure, just don't put it in. That's enough. So all this would be enough to get you your 10 out of 10 marks. Let's hear how this sounds. So how this would sound is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I did not have a bassoon, but I have a bass recorder, so there we go. That would give you 10 marks there. So now we're moving on to example number 2. Bass clef yet again, 6/8 yet again, upbeat yet again, and yet again. We definitely start in the dominant chord, harmonically. Melodically, we can see an E sharp there, which is of course the leading note of F sharp minor. So we're going to go ahead and outline our chords, and then we're going to complete this melody. So in F sharp minor, we're going to outline our 7 chords. Okay, so I've outlined our 7 chords, and of course the dominant 7th has that extra note because it's not a triad but a quartet. So here we go. We have our 8 bars, which we can quickly label in pencil. We have bar 1, after the upbeat bar, we have bar 2, then bar 3 is empty, 4 is empty, and 5 through 8 are empty. First things first, we outline our chords. Now right at the end, we know we want to have a tonic chord. Preceding that, we want to have a dominant 7th chord. Preceding that, we want to have a sequence of this, which this is going to be a copy-paste of this. So that's great. Then we would like to have our tonic also present in bar 4. We would like to then have our normal dominant present in bar 3. And of course, right at the beginning of the piece, we see that we end up on the dominant of F sharp minor. Then in our first bar, what do we have? Well, we start in the F sharp, we have an A, we have C sharps, we're definitely on the tonic. What do we have over here? Well, our chord notes. We can outline them as, okay, there's a D, we see a C sharp, not really important. We see a B, we see an F sharp. Those would be the notes from the subdominant. So that's B, D, F sharp. So that is something that can lead to the dominant. That's great. Nothing else needs to happen there. We just need to complete this bar. So first phrase will be what they give us. Great. Now we need to complete that phrase. Now we have options. We can already copy paste the upbeat bar in bar 1 into an upbeat and bar 5 and have a sequence, or we can already start fiddling around there. So what I'm going to do is I'm definitely going to copy paste the sequence already. So I'm going from the leading note, which is E sharp. I am going to somewhat put in my phrase over there. Okay, so I don't know what I want at the end yet, but I know that I'm definitely going to copy paste bar 1 over into bar 5, the exact articulation and the exact rhythm with the exact notes. Okay, we have a staccato over there. Then I'm going to have a sequence over here. This is our sequence bar. Okay, and again, tell me in the comments which chord we are actually using over here. If this is tonic, what is our sequence built on? Okay, then we have our sequence. So we started on an F sharp there. We're going to start on a G sharp over here. And same rhythm. So we have 2 bars in the second line and 2 bars in the first line that are incomplete. Let's go ahead and complete. So we do know that we want to have the dominant over here, and we can start on any of the notes. We can start C sharp, E sharp, G sharp. I would like to start on my root note, so I would like to start in a C sharp. So that, I'm just going to have a little note there, that is a C sharp. What's going to precede it is a nice close note to the C sharp that I can get from my subdominant chord. And I'm just going to precede it with a D. Okay, so that's quite nice. Also a little sequence in some way of the initial upbeat start. You know, there's an E sharp. Just below that we have a D, and I think I would want to start this phrase on a D. But again, you could start it on the B, you could start it on the F sharp, that's okay. I mean, B also precedes the C sharp quite nicely. So either or, you can see how it works for you, what changes. Of course, you don't have access to an instrument in the exam, but as you're doing these exercises at home, I would hope that you play it on your instrument or you sing it. But test it out, see if it works, see if it makes sense, and that you're not jumping around. Okay, so I'm going to outline my chord, C sharp, E sharp, G sharp. I'm going to use a little rhythm that they have given us already. Okay. Watch your stems also. By now you've already been so well versed in writing music that it's probably second nature to you, but just be reminded of which way stems go, how notes are grouped together in 6/8 time, stuff like that. Okay. And the articulation was to put this together. And then I'm going to have this staccato and that staccato as well, since they like to have single quavers as staccato figures. That is what I'm already doing by meaningful articulation. I can already do it while I'm filling this in. Now, at the end of my phrase, I definitely want to end on an F sharp, but I don't just have to end on a lonely dotted crotchet followed by a crotchet tied together. I could, but I just want to do something a bit more spicy here. Talk about passing notes. Let me try and copy something that they've done. Okay, I think that's going to work out nicely. We copy what they have done by adding in a nice little quaver C sharp that is articulated with a staccato. Okay, great. Nice. And then we are going to add in our final bar, which of course is end on an F sharp, and I think I'm going to let it end on this F sharp. That definitely needs to be the longest note value possible in this time signature, and that longest note value is a dotted crotchet tied to a crotchet, because we of course have an upbeat at the beginning. So this plus that It'll give you a full bar, mathematically speaking. Okay, now the only thing we have to compose is this dominant 7th bar. And I think we'll just start in the root. It's quite close to this D as well, so C sharp. Okay, I'm doing a little bit of a scale-like pattern here. And it goes up to a G sharp, and then that just falls down to the tonic by a whole tone. Okay, and my articulation here, I've put in a staccato. I don't know if that's visible there, a staccato G sharp. And I can also go ahead and sort of do what they've done in the beginning. There we go. And I just need to fix my articulations over here. That's fine. And over there, just making sure everything is uniform. So articulations are good. This very exercise actually came with the tempo indication of moderato. So that's something we didn't have to technically fill in. They gave that to us. And right at the beginning, it came with the dynamic of mezzo forte. That's great. So now we just need to add in something else. Even if we just add in a copy, paste of a opposite dynamic, mezzo piano, and at the end we can maybe say that we are gradually getting louder and we want to end on a mezzo forte again. We can do that, not really necessary, but we can. And that is that. It'll give you a 10 box. So if I was you, I would write down, this is for bassoon, in the little instrument section. Like I said, definitely cello could play this, but I mean, then you would have to add in things like up bows and down bows, and if you're not sure how and why and to do it, rather don't. But I mean, if you were going to add in up bows and down bows, remember down bows look like that, up bows are indicated like that, and you would probably just indicate it at the start of a phrase, okay? You wouldn't like indicate every single thing because you're not physically going to play this. But you would probably indicate, okay, I'm going to do an up bow at the beginning, and maybe I'll do another up bow there. Maybe each of your phrases you want to start on an up bow, or maybe there's something interesting in the middle that you need to have a down bow for. But it gets tricky when it comes to strings, so don't do that, especially if you're not a string player. If you're a string player and you want to do something fancy like this, go ahead, write for the cello. But I would advise to write for the bassoon at all times for bass clef and the flute at all times for treble clef. So let us quickly play this, not on bassoon, but on bass recorder, and then we'll go to a final example, and I think I'll throw you a treble clef one there. This is how this example would sound. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's move on to our next example. So here is our third and final example for the day. I hope that this does help you. Any questions or comments, feel free to leave in the comments below. So this one, we are finally given in the treble clef. We are in G minor. The two flats give it away, plus the little F sharp going to G over here. We do have a tempo indication of moderato. They do give us an initial dynamic indication of mezzo piano. We will have to now complete the melody as well as add our own meaningful articulations, copying what they give us, and then adding our own further dynamic indications, furthering along on what they have given us. Okay, so right now I see that they do start with staccato, so some staccatos I can definitely add in between. I can feel free to do that. I can feel free to have some slurs because they do give us some slurs over there. And what I see are some nice patterns. Quavers, quavers, semiquavers, dotted quaver, beam to a semiquaver. So I'm not now going to just add random triplets or who knows what else I could add. I just want to be nice and plain, okay? I'm going to use what they have given. I'm not going to try to remove myself totally from this, okay? That's also what we know from grade 4. So we're in treble clef. We're going to write down flute next to the instrument that they want us to add because, hey, flute can do this. We're just going to make sure that we don't go below a middle C. But of course, they've given us a G. So the lowest we really want to go is like a dominant below that G, which would be a D, which is already above middle C, so that's fine. Okay, so what we need to do is outline our bar numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We also want to outline our chord numbers with our chord notes. So we can have chord symbols or numbers. I like to do the numbers, and I like to do everything small baby letters for minor keys, capital letters for major keys. So we're in a minor key yet again, because this is definitely what you're going to get. We are going to outline our numbers 1 to 7 because we have 7 different chords. Okay, so I've outlined our chords for us. We have B flats, E flats, and of course our raised 7th, the F sharp. And we have our dominant 7th being D, F sharp, A, C in the key of G minor. So let's go ahead. We know that we're going to have our tonic in our last bar, our dominant 7th over here. We're going to have a sequence over here. Yet again, tell me which chord the sequence is based on. We're going to have our tonic chord over here because our tonic chord is there, and that's a copy paste. Of course, we can see our little dominant indication over there with the F sharp, and then we have to figure out what's going on here. Now, if we look closely, we can see we have C's, E flats. I would say subdominant. Of course, we do have C's and E flats over there, but I would say this chord is more leaning itself towards this one. If you wanted to make it explicitly the supertonic, you would have to probably add your A. If you want to make it explicitly a subdominant, you might want to add a G. But if you just want to keep it open-ended, you can just repeat one of your 2 chord notes that are there, which is a C or an E flat. But what I would do is really cement it as the subdominant. So I would go ahead and make my last note in this bar a G, and a nice staccato one at that, because I'm copying what they've done at the beginning. So we phrase what they give us, and then my next phrase is going to start on a G. Great. Then over here, I definitely want a dominant chord, and I definitely want that to go to the tonic. Perfect. So what I do know is that the upbeat bar and bar 1 is going to be copied into upbeat and bar 5. So an F sharp over there, a nice staccato one at that. I'm going to have a whole phrase line right to the end, but over here I'm going to copy paste my bar 1 into this bar 5. So we have a G and a B flat. Oh, I don't have to explicitly put in the flat. I almost did. And we have that. We have a nice little legato slur over there. And then we're going to have a sequence. So we're going to start an A to C. We're going up to an E flat. And we can just pay attention to our stem directions. Okay, great. And we're also going to use articulation that they've used. Great. Now we want to see what we can do in our dominant bar. And for the first time, I'm not going to be all fancy in bar 4 over there. I just want to have a normal G. And I think the longest G that we want in this piece is going to be the same G that appears at the end. We have a minim G. Okay, because it makes up for our upbeat at the beginning. And then, yeah, same thing, minim G. Let's not be too crazy. That's going to be fine. We could definitely go G, A, G if you wanted to, or G, F sharp, G in terms of crotchets, but why? Crotchets and quavers or a combination thereof. But let us just be normal. Okay, and so we have bar 7 that's missing, bar 3 that's missing. Bar 3 definitely needs to be based on dominant. Bar 7 on the dominant 7th. Let's start with bar 3. Our dominant is, of course, D, F sharp, A. So I think I'm going to start on a note that's close to G, and I think we can start in the 5th, that's fine. I'm going to start in an A. And then I want to go down to my leading note, and I want to use a rhythm that they have used before. So that gives you 1 beat. I need 2 more beats in this bar. And I think I do want to jump then to a D. And what is nice, I see a D, I see a G that I'm headed towards, and I can actually just scale like passage, go down. That means I'll also then technically have passing notes in there, and that's great. In the others, the other 2 examples before this, I didn't really want to put passing notes there. But that's also because then I was a bit more fancy in bar 4, but now I'm playing in bar 4, so I can have a scale like passage going down, and that's quite fine. So I'm going to then have a little combination of what they have given me already. I'm going to do something like that. So our chord notes will actually be A, it'll be the F sharp, it'll be the D. Okay, and it'll be this A as well. So that's great. Of course, we do have in our dominant 7th the C, but Technically, I'm not thinking of this as a dominant 7, but it's over there. That's okay. So we've got that going for us, and we can also very much phrase or slur like that, or we can go here, make this a staccato. Very, very interesting. We have options, but I don't think I want to staccato that. I think I want to have everything slurred. Nice, that's going to be very interesting on the soprano recorder. I can see it already. And then last bar that we need to compose, dominant 7th explicitly, so I definitely want my C in there no matter what. And now because I thought of this as soprano recorder, I'm thinking of a very recorder-like thing to do. If we're going to start on our dominant, it's going to be D, with a root note there, and it's nice, a tone up from C. I want maybe that as crotchets, put in the main crotchet beats, but I want to split them into quavers, so I'm going to do this. Oh, a very recorder-like passage. I can also beam all these quavers together, and I can maybe also alter the line a little bit, do something like this, just for fun. Articulation wise, we can change if we want to, but I think I'm going to do that. And of course, this is an F sharp, not an F. Okay, so there we have it. Very, very interesting. Let's see how it sounds on the soprano recorder. So this one is in 3/4. We definitely start in the upbeat as well. Let's try it out. 1, 2. That is actually very sweet. The one thing I did forget to do is have a little indication of where our dynamics are going. And I think because we started mezzo piano, I think we will just go ahead and try out a mezzo forte there. But that is enough. And that should get you 10 marks. Very, very nice. And I know it's a lot just for 10 marks, but it is something that you work through. It's something that's so beneficial for you as a musician, but for you as a composer as well. And just for you understanding how melodies work, and for you then to take anything and be able to create something with it on paper, yes, but then also on your instrument or instruments. Go ahead and try it out. I know in the exam you don't have access to an instrument, but this makes sense always, practically, academically, theoretically. So I hope that this video has helped you. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. So this is what you need for grade 5, and a lot of people get to grade 5 theory and then I think they're like, oh no, I'm done. But please do go further. It gets more and more interesting. The next step to melody writing is of course in grade 6, when we then look at 12-bar melody writing. And in our 12-bar melody writing, we of course have 12 bars, but what they will do is they will give us a nice little section. We can also copy paste very much what we've done at the end, like bars 5 to 8. We would copy that whole idea and put it right at the end, so in the latter bars, and then in the middle we would do something different, and there we're actually going to modulate, yay, and have modulating sequences. So passing through other keys, not just the key that they give us, but other things. That's very exciting. So I will endeavor to make a video on that in the future. So if you are interested, please be on the lookout for that. But I hope that this does help in terms of grade 5 melody writing, and hope that it does make sense, the whole progression up until now. So when you had 2-bar rhythms to add, when you had a 4-bar phrase to add, when you had an 8-bar completion of a melody in very simple terms to add, and then when you have to complete 8 bars when you're only given 2 bars, I hope it makes sense now. So all the best for your preparation for your UNISA exam, or for any type of melody writing exercises, whether it's going to be for school homework, whether it's going to be for school tests or exams, or whether you're just trying to complete melodies. I hope that this has helped, and all the best for your preparation in melody writing further. Bye.